They say that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and there is a lot of truth to that. But don't be intimidated. With this video, I will actually help you fix everything. Because if you can fix that one thing that's screwing up everything else, then you can't fix everything. How do we do this? Hobby maxing, hobby maxing, hobby maxing, and the fourth way. These boomers constantly complain that kids today, they don't want to work. That is not true. Well, it is. Okay. No one wants to actually work. We're compelled to work by our circumstances, and your parents teach you how to do it. But it turns out that the parents forgot to teach the kids how to work. Also, Americans are more mentally and spiritually lost than they've ever been, and those things are actually related. I noticed that many American parents simply do not know how to teach their kids how to work. They think the kids will just pick it up through osmosis, like they did. And I don't think they did. And if they did, that's really sad. I had to learn to work on my own. It put me at a disadvantage, but I appreciate the lessons more as an adult, and I think I'm better able to articulate what I learned to you now than if I had learned it young. Sometimes you got to be outside of it to really describe it to someone who is also outside of it. If you pick it up too young, then you're never outside of it, and you're just like, well, this is the way it is. And it's like, it's not like that. You have to be taught. Fellow YouTuber Theodore Nottingham, he sent me this book on the fourth way. It's a method of learning a craft that makes it almost spiritual, but not really spiritual. There's nothing supernatural involved, but also spiritual. You'll see. I'll explain it. Your craft can be your job if you're lucky. It can be your hobby, or you can still apply these lessons to the things you have to do in your life anyway. You got to clean every day. Do the work through cleaning. You got to parent, you got to be a friend, you got to be a good son or community member. Well, do the work through building your communication skills, through building your relationships. You can do this work through a lot of ways. So basically, here is what I'm going to talk about in this video, break it down for you as simply as I can. And if I fail to do that, please ask me specific questions in the comments section. I'm going to break down the fourth way as described in the book by Theodore Nottingham. The fourth way is a method by Gurdjieff, who was an early 20th century spiritual teacher in Russia and Europe mostly. And yes, many destructive cults have come from his teachings, and you shouldn't join any of them. Please don't join those cults. This method can be applied to any task that requires skill. And it works with any religion. So you can be an atheist, you can be a Buddhist, you could be a Christian, whatever. It all works. It doesn't really conflict, I had the pleasure of speaking with Theodore Nottingham for this very long interview, and I will clip that interview for the relevant pieces here. He's got the whole interview on his YouTube channel, so go check that out if you are interested. We talk about a bunch of things. You may have seen some of the other videos that I clipped with him. I will also break down why the fourth way is a great method for combating the onslaught of mental chaos of these modern times. Build your craft, build your mind, build your mental fortitude. Gurdjieff made his teachings for modernity. Everyone's living in modernity. There's always the now. But his modernity was 100 years ago. So same problems that we're suffering right now. Onslaught of technology, onslaught of communication. Everything is changing. Where is true north? He was suffering the same. Ours is much more chaotic. But nevertheless, this can help in the modern age. Finally, at the end of this video, I will list off 20 random things that this can be applied to. I know I said it can be applied to anything, and that is absolutely true. But sometimes anything, that's just too much. You can't wrap your head around that. So I will list off specific things, specific hobbies, specific activities that you can do. And if you do one on your own, that's great. You can just shut off the video when I start. Anyway, let me give you a brief history of how we got here in case you missed it. Ted Nottingham is an author and spiritual teacher who contacted me about my video, my Rate My Cult on the Fellowship of Friends. He had been in that cult in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s. The fellowship used Gurdjieff's teachings as a lure to bring in people and to exploit them and abuse them in some cases. Nevertheless, Gurdjieff's teachings have great weight, and Ted didn't abandon Gurdjieff just because he left the cult, because this was a false group to it. Definitely check out those videos. I will link them at the bottom. This is a very short and sweet summary of the fourth way as told in this book, which is already a short and sweet summary of what Gurdjieff and Opinski wrote about. So if you're interested in what I'm saying, definitely go pick this book up and read it more thoroughly. And if you're interested in that, you can read the original text too. If you got the time, go for it. I'll link all those things down at the bottom. Now, Gurdjieff believed that we have a cosmic responsibility to create and to improve. Most people go through life completely unaware of this. They are sleeping. In their sleep, they go through the motions very mechanically, kind of like they're programmed marionettes. The sleeping motif is very common in spiritualism and in politics. So, of course, we're going to take it with a grain of salt. This is just how he described it. But maybe if you do feel empty, try working towards a craft and building that craft and thus fulfilling your duty to the universe. See if it works. Might as well try. Okay, so with that, we have the motivation to improve. And it's nothing superficial like look good for the gram. It's real internal motivation to get better. How we improve our craft is the next step. We must observe ourselves without judgment. Don't get mad at yourself. Don't try to make excuses. I know sometimes watching ourselves just gives us major cringe because like, why did I do that? Oh, but don't do it, okay? Don't have that cringe. Put that cringe to the side. If you can get past that and look at yourself objectively, you can really improve. You can take note on what you're doing wrong. Watch yourself as if you were watching somebody that you want to get better, like a student. Watch yourself like you're watching a student, like you're watching someone you're coaching. Be a bit impersonal, but still positive and supportive. The next step is do not identify with your thoughts and your emotions. You are the land, and your thoughts and your emotions are the weather that are passing by the land. There will be new weather. And also, you can't let those storms mess up your land. You understand? So do the best you can to not identify with your thoughts and your emotions. We've discussed this on previous videos. How many of those thoughts and emotions are not even yours? How many of them have been implanted in your head from social media and all these things you see all the time, and you're just repeating them in your own internal voice if you have one, but they're not really yours. That's why you don't get too attached to them. If they keep coming up because they're helpful, good, but don't get too attached with every thought you have and every emotion you have. It's actually quite harmful. So your thoughts and emotions are the weather. There will be new weather. There's going to be a new day tomorrow. Every day is different. There's actually a lot to this self-observation stuff. So that's why I recommend reading through the book or going to Ted's channel and looking at some of his videos on this specifically. That is a self-observation. The next step is being fully present and aware of this moment, okay? We know this as mindfulness. Don't think about the future and don't think about the mistakes you made in the past. Be in the moment. Be aware of what you're doing right now. If you're drawing, you just worry about where the pen meets the paper. In figure skating, we say, stay over your skate. Okay, don't be back there. Don't be to the front. Stay over your skate. This is just like you're walking or you're dancing. Where is your weight right now? It's in the moment. It's on your foot. Don't think of the next step and don't think of the previous step, although you have to. It's complicated. Nevertheless, stay over your skate. Where the pen meets the paper. This is the now. Pen, paper, now. And this is actually a really... It's hard to grasp. It's hard to grasp sometimes because our minds are always, what do I have to do? What have I done in the past? But what you're focusing on is what you're doing right now. Right now. No, now. Now. It's a stupid mindfulness joke. So you're drawing. Only worry about where the pen meets the paper. Don't get too in your head and think, I have trouble with hands, because now you're forcing yourself to have trouble with hands. Just look at the hands or look at whatever you're drawing and make the lines to the best of your ability. Right now, you are not the observer. You are the observed, but don't think of yourself as the observed. Don't be too introspective, okay? Just be. Just do what you're doing. Whatever you decide to do it, just do it. And don't feel there are people watching me. I'm watching me. Myself from the future is watching me. The ghosts of my ancestors are watching me. People get way up in their heads. Don't think about that. Just do whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing. And this is one of those things that people spend a lifetime trying to get. But if you can do a sport or if you can do it in a hobby, within a hobby, that you will understand what this present moment actually is and what you have to do for the present moment. If you're looking at a video, that video is made up of many frames, right? So each one of those frames is the present moment. I really hope I explained that. If I didn't explain that, ask me in the comment section. I will explain it to you to the best of my ability. Pen meets the paper. Stay over your skate. Your pressure is on the foot that you're walking on. Remember that. That is the now. My personal advice would be to exhale and do what you got to do. That's a better way of getting physically in the now. Exhale. Here I am. Along the way with all the spiritual development, you will still be you and you will still be greatly flawed. I'm sorry, we are all very flawed. And you'll still get upset at yourself. you'll have plenty of negative emotions. What you got to do is transform those negative emotions into positive emotions, into something constructive. This will be different for everybody. How they do it is going to be different. We all do this differently. Try to use that cringe or whatever, try to use that as motivation for change. And if you can't, if you're one of those people who gets two in your head and is just like, I did something embarrassing once, I can't ever get past it, exhale and move on. Just exhale and move on and let your actions take you. There's different personality types to this, okay? So I can't tell you specifically. And don't worry about what other people think of you all the time. Don't have to worry about it. I know this is really hard. It's really, really hard because we have to live in the world, but it keeps us from improving. And it's a huge problem with artists on social media because art needs to be messy. At least at first, you've got to build your skill. You've got to make mistakes and you've got to constantly be improving. But social media demands we be perfect. And the pressure to be on social media is a lot for artists. And sometimes it actually hinders them from making the development, from being messy enough to make those mistakes. The content machine, not only is it taking your attention as the viewer, but it takes our attention as the artist. And it's very, very damaging. Okay. It's damaging because it's impossible to have those messy periods and art suffers in the long term. Basically, just do what you're doing and don't let others get to you. If you can't interact with others without them getting to you, then keep the interaction superficial. It's fine. It's fine. Especially for the time that you're working on yourself. It's going to happen. It's going to happen that you're at a point where you can present to others, but that doesn't have to happen right away. And I got to point it out, but there are a lot of haters in this world. There are a lot of people who have problems with themselves and they'll take it out on you because look at you, you're trying to get better. Well, I couldn't get better because X, Y, and Z, let me bring her down. No. Don't you listen to those people. And some people, they're not even negative like that. They just don't understand what they're doing or they'll, whatever. They're not your problem right now. You have to understand that just they have their own journeys. They're working on their own thing. You got to work on yours and just keep it superficial until you're ready to present yourself, and it's fine. Now, this very last thing I want to touch on is from this book. It's called One's Chief Feature. This is very important. Please write this down. This is the underlying problem that expresses itself in everything that we do. If you're one to cut corners, this is for example, if you're one to cut corners, that will come up in everything you do, from your work life to your personal life. If you overthink things and can't loosen up, well, that's going to come up in your relationship and in your hobbies. And look, sometimes, most of the time, I'll say this, not just sometimes, most of the time, we don't know what this chief feature is. We only see the effect of this chief feature in different aspects of our lives. And we keep coming up to the same problems in different things we do. And it just causes us a lot of frustration in all kinds of areas. But if you really work and look at yourself objectively, over and over again, and maybe perhaps for many years, eventually you will come down to that thing, that flaw, whatever, that aspect of your personality that is weaving its way into various aspects of your lives and perhaps sabotaging you. It takes a lot of work. It is not easy. It is not. So I'm just going to sum this up really quick. When we become aware of how we move through life, we decide to stop acting mechanically. Instead, we decide to act on our own. The next step is to be aware of ourselves and of our actions, but not to judge. Understand. If you can't understand yourself, how are you supposed to understand anybody else? So once we begin that, we can be mindful of our actions and improve our craft, improve our technique, and really learn. Then we can find our chief feature, the underlying flaw in our personality that keeps sabotaging us. And once we can do that, we can fix it. So there's much more to this book. And if you're really interested, I think you should read it. I'm honestly suggesting that. I recommend to young people, especially if you're in your teens or if you're in your 20s or if you're mentoring someone that age, it's especially important to understand this method. Now, I asked Ted about this aspect here. I was really impressed that he didn't abandon Gurdjieff when he abandoned the group. This is what he had to say about it. But the fourth way itself, you can use that and you can tackle whatever hobby you have. Mine is skating. Ice skating. I like to figure skate. And so I'm not that good. I'll just put it out there. I'm not that great. Anyone who knows how to skate will be like, oh, she's okay. But because it is so difficult and because there's so much attached to it, I just enjoy learning more and getting better, even if I'm not going to go to the Olympics, but but I'm still getting better and I'm still using it to improve.
Self-observation requires objectively seeing it and not judging what you're seeing, which is very difficult. But it's the first step into initiation into another consciousness where you are not caught in the gears of yourself. But I want to say this too, that working on the body, as you're suggesting, is something that we can get a hold of and do something about. Way more difficult to work on the emotions, right? Because they're so fast and they're less tangible. So that, in a sense, as you create your discipline towards your body and its activity, you are establishing a structure that can also be applied to your mind, to your emotions, to your overall being. And one of the key elements in that is to avoid or recognize what Gurdjieff calls unnecessary suffering. In other words, all of that feeling bad about this, as you were saying, is a leakage of energy. When you are not doing what we always have done and know how to be passive to that kind of behavior, you are recycling your energy to have more available to you to use in a better way. You have clarity of mind because you're not just all the crazy monkeys in your head anymore. And so it focuses, it clarifies, it aligns, it saves energy to be able to do more. And you discovered all that even without knowing you were discovering it as you applied it to your physical activity, which then becomes applicable to your emotional life, in a way. So what are we talking about? Will, intentional, conscious will. You have an aim. This is one of the beautiful elemental things of the fourth way of Gurdjieff. What's your aim? Stick to that aim. Make that aim your focus, and that lifts you up out of all the old ways, all old pitfalls that we go into automatically, because now you're remembering what you're trying to do. So that's a very fine example of one way for sure that ironically or beautifully leads to God consciousness. You go from ice
It's
skating
true.
to encounter with the holy in the moment, eternity and time.
It's true. What I appreciate most about speaking with Ted Nottingham is that you can see he's our elder. And we take that for granted. Our elders are always going to be here. They're always going to be able to tell us things. But that is not true. Our elders won't always be here. And the information they have needs to get passed on while they're still here. Thank goodness Ted has his own YouTube. He's been passing on a lot of that information to us. So thank you very much, Ted. Okay, so what do I do with all this information? The answer is you can literally do anything with this information. I'm just going to give you 20 random examples. For me personally, the most important craft I am working on right now is to be a better parent to my son, to teach him about life, to make his environment healthy, and to set a good example through my behavior. I draw, I paint, I figure skate, and I do this YouTube, of course. But the most important thing really is my son, because the effects of how I raise him will ripple into the future for a long time. But the example that I set is through methods like this. It's through observing myself and improving. And if I can set that example for him, then maybe he can set it for his children and so off into the future. So what we do, we think just these mundane things that we do in our lives that have virtually no meaning have a lot of meaning. Somebody is watching you, not in a creepy way, in a loving way. 20 random things. Okay, let's do it. Landscaping, you get to work with nature and improve your surroundings. You are basically your own Sims, and it's kind of a reflection of how we started farming and how we went from nomads to settled and language and all of this deep epic things. But we don't have to go into that. You can just plant some mums. If you got the best mums, you're killing it, okay? Cleaning. This is why housekeepers get paid. They are better at it. They see dirt that the rest of us don't see. They're deep cleaners with this X-ray vision. And your recreational deep cleaner friend, that person is a superhero. Really try it. You can apply this to cleaning. Organizing. Organizing is different from cleaning. This is finding in your home a system that works for you. It's systems management, and you can always get better at this. So apply the fourth way to organizing. Cooking. I told you already to work in a restaurant as a teenager, but if you did not listen to me, please respect cooking for the fabulous craft that it is. It's not just a way to put chicken in your face, although that is your reward at the end. You get to put chicken in your face, okay? Baking. Baking is basically a science. It's not like cooking. There's chemical reactions. It's amazing. Baking. Okay. Sewing clothes. Yes, you can buy clothes dirt cheap, but you can also learn how to design and sew your own clothing. You're probably not going to do your whole wardrobe, but you can do some staple pieces, and it gets so advanced. You can start off by buying a pattern and just doing whatever, adjusting it to yourself. And then you can go up to designing your own patterns, which is basically like 3D modeling. It's fantastic. Interior decorating. I see this all the time. You learn colors, you learn flow, you learn composition. You can apply it to your home for very little money, and you can have a very nice home. I see these magicians working on YouTube and Instagram. The visual arts. This can be drawing, painting, sculpting. If you need help in any of these areas, except for sculpting, I don't know how to sculpt, and drawing and painting, ask me at the bottom. I will give you specific things because I could go on forever. Calligraphy, put your laptop down and pick up a pen. The sky's the limit with calligraphy because you could do cursive or you could do these fabulous medieval manuscripts and anything in between. Their entire cultures, their art is basically calligraphy. Okay, next one, writing. Don't let ChatGPT write everything. Write your own letters. Do let ChatGPT write your resumes because I'm not trying to have you go hungry out here, but you can write your own letters to your friends. You can write short stories. You can write creepypastas, novels, essays, poems, whatever. Write love letters to your boo. That's a lost art, love letters to the boo. I'm mad about that. Martial arts, okay? You are not doing this to fight people. You're doing this to fight your weaker self. Figure skating, I figure skate. I love it. I have a lot of men in my life. It's nice to be around women as well. It's nice to have a friend group, and things like skating, figure skating, roller skating, any of these things that I'm listing off, you can go and you can make a new group of friends. And that's so hard to do as an adult. Okay. You can do dance. There are entire cultures who think dance is the be all and end all of the world, but it doesn't have to be all that. Okay. It can be tap, jazz, salsa, Afrofusion with my teacher, Regan. Okay. You can do all these things. And if you need good YouTube dance instructor suggestions, comment below, because of course I know some. Running. These people are insane to me. I don't understand this. What do you mean you're just running and nobody is chasing you? But these runners, they're into it. Okay. And that applies to cyclists as well. Props to these people for just raw dogging cardio because I couldn't do it, but good for you. Body sculpting. You can do Pilates. You can do weight training. You can do CrossFit. Your muscle structure is going to keep you hot and it's going to keep you young. Stretching, like yoga or contortion, they are not the same thing. They're completely different. Woodwork. If you have the chance to work with wood and you aren't doing it, you are actually crazy. Don't let these manufacturers, don't let these Chinese manufacturers, whoever's shipping things in, don't let them decide the limits of your artistic ability. Just because you can get something cheaper on Amazon doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to make it yourself. If that's what you want to do. Obviously, you can't make everything, but you can make a spice cabinet. You can make a birdhouse. You can build your house if you want to take it there, or you can just do something small. But if that's what you want to do, do it, and don't be discouraged that you can get it for 10 cents from China. Because it's not what this is about. Same thing with clothes. It's not what this is about. Same thing with food. Yeah, you can go to burger. Don't. Tiling. Tiling is very interesting. People overlook it all the time. You can make mosaics in your home, or you can do your walls, you can do your floors, and you can make furniture tops look really cool. Look into tiling because it is an amazing art. Plus, you can pass on that stuff to your kids. My sister still has a coffee table that my great-grandfather tiled. He did the top of it. It's a great condition. He built it. He did the top. And he's been dead for 50 years. My great-grandmother has been dead for 50 years. But that table is here. And we always talk about him when we point to the table because it's so nice. And people ask about it. So my great-grandfather did that. That table is going to make it to the next generation. So just imagine that you're remembered for 100 years for something that you did over a weekend. Think about it. I'm not going to mention my great-grandfather without mentioning my great-grandmother. She did needlepoint. I still have the needlepoint in my kitchen. I'll put a picture of it. It says, "We grow too soon old and too late smart." And she's supposed to be smart, but she misspelled smart which is funny. That is funny. They didn't have YouTube back then, so grandmas had to joke through needle pointing. And you know what? Thank you, great grandma, because I still have that in my kitchen and my daughter will too. That needlepoint has survived longer than any of my videos will. Keep that in mind. When you're doing your art, keep that in mind. You might just be doing it for fun, but your great, great, great grandchild could keep this in their house. And yes, there are crazy needle pointers out there. So definitely look that up. Next up is knitting and crocheting. These women, they work magic and they have the best fashions. You look at something that's really nicely crocheted for their shape and it's just like few and far between because that's expensive to buy. Next up is entertaining. Entertaining is an art in itself. That's why we hire party planners. It's basically project management. And life. Check out Martha Stewart Living. I loved the doc, by the way. We will talk about it. Martha Stewart made a career as a lifestyle influencer before it was even cool. I still cannot believe what Comey did to her. That guy, whatever. Your life, even if you don't spend much more money, it can be better just through conscious effort. And of course, there are many, many, many more. These are just 20 random things I pointed out. So if you have a craft, let us know in the comment section. Tell us what it is and how good you are at it. And if somebody else is like, well, I want to learn that, ask that person questions. Anyway, the fourth way, how do you actually improve? How do you actually get better? And by getting better at one thing, if you can really, really get down to it, you can start to learn how to get better at everything. But you got to want it and you got to work really, really hard and you got to get up and you got to keep getting up every single day and you got to silence the cringe. It's like, shut up, cringe. Doing my best, cringe. Oh, anyway,